This is the last video we are making at E3. The last E3 ever, by the looks of this meeting room. Is E3 dead?
Yes, Tim, it is. Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. The heartbreaking news crashed through our screens like a greased up Adam Sessler that the mecca of our medium, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, is dead. From its humble beginnings in 1995, back when dull blokes in suits fawned over PowerPoint presentations, and journalists swanning about recording Dutch tilted gameplay on battery-powered potatoes, E3 would quickly grow in popularity, inviting not only the suits and the gaming press I just mentioned, but later every game-liking Jerry from around the world. But as soon as we normies got invited to this gala of gaudiness, E3's reputation started to turn. You see, before this, the only way to learn what was going on at this prestigious event was going through gaming mags, and admittedly as a kid, I would fawn over these pages, engorging myself with all the new tat coming out of the slot pipe. But as technology was barring through its own evolution with the internet, soon that analog choice would be replaced with a digital fire hose, drenching our minds with information, and of course creepy fan cams of booth babes, which further perpetuated the stereotype that game enjoyers are clunge-obsessed spods. Anyway, with this rise of the internet and of course social media, users of these platforms would start clipping and sharing moments from this event, where socially awkward game developers and corporate clowns tried and failed to relate to an audience of socially awkward consumers. And this is where the current reputation of E3 finally flourished, and I thought it would be fun to pick over this fresh carcass and highlight a few of my favourite moments, and then give E3 not the eulogy it wants, but deserves. Speaking of the mid-90s, as I sarcastically insert obnoxious commercials to those nostalgia wankers who pretend to love this shit, Electronic 3's maiden voyage was made infamous by the shock release of Sega's brand new 32-bit powerhouse, the Saturn. With an asking price of $399 and a launch lineup consisting of Virtual Fighter, the wonderful Panzer Dragoon, and Pebble Beach Golf Links, which is of course its killer app if you're middle class. Unfazed by this, Sony's head, Olaf Olsson, stopped boring us to death about Swedish meatballs and brought Steve Race to the stage, and as he confidently strided towards the podium, he said 3 numbers.
299.
And with these 3 numbers, the Sega Saturn was dead on arrival. Not only was the PS1 100 smackers cheaper, but it also had a launch lineup of diverse titles to sink your teeth into. And with Sega trying to jump the polygonal gun, not only did it piss off the retailers, who now had to scramble to get it on store shelves with no time to advertise, but also the developers and publishers who were aiming to bring out games on launch day, in hopes they'd be displayed next to a shiny new console. So yeah, anyone for a round of golf? The next few Ed, and Eddies went without drama, apart from the dudes ogling tinted human billboards of course, until 2003, when the world was in the firm grip of the hype machine known as Grand Theft Auto, and suddenly we had a renaissance where the industry embraced the seedier side of human nature, which also brought the old chestnut of conservative bellends, who were now bleating like sexually repressed lambs about the collapsing morals of the youth today. But this new era of edgy shite wasn't going to phase the old guard of video games, Nintendo, as their head honcho, George Harrison, took to the stage and tell the audience that in this tsunami of change, Team Mario is keeping it real.
Now we do insist that each installment of a franchise be better than the last, but our characters will remain true. Donkey Kong will remain a lovable ape, Link will never lose hope, and of course Mario will never start shooting hookers.
Perhaps a tad too real. 1 year later after this gaffe, Peter Moore, the figurehead of Microsoft's Xbox, rolled up his sleeve to show off his prison tattoo, announcing the return of John Halo. Shigeru Miyamoto, armed with Link's sword and shield, threatened the crowd to scream woo at this impressive trailer for the newest entry in the Zelda series. And the world would be graced by the handsome face of Reggie Fils-Aimé, Nintendo's new head honcho, and luckily during his opening speech, no hookers were harmed.
My name is Reggie, I'm about kicking ass, I'm about taking names, and we're about making games.
Fast forward to 2006, where Peter Moore put another game on his 2-inch pythons, But sadly, this was the only skin you would see this year, as the organisers of E3, the ESA, finally put the kibosh on exhibitors using ladies to lazily advertise their products. And also to lower costs, the event was downsized from their home at the LA Convention Center to nearby venues with restricted attendance. But we don't care about this, we know why we're talking about E3 2006, the Sony conference, where Kaz Hirai enraptured the crowd with almost 2 hours of memorable bangers. From the insane price of the new flagship console, the PlayStation 3, and the reaction of the crowd says it all.
The 20GB PlayStation 3 will retail for $499 US and 549 Canadian dollars. And the 60GB PlayStation 3 for $599 US, $659 Canadian.
A live demo of one of the launch titles, Genji, a authentic historic look at feudal Japan.
So here's this giant enemy crab.
Apparently, and the first trailer for the smug prick-em-up, Uncharted. But if that's too much white bread tedium for your tastes, why not cleanse your palate with Kaz screaming,
It's Ridge Racer! Ridge Racer! Remember that one?
hell yeah, mate. In this household, it's always time for Ridge Racer! Slam cut to 2008, where after having its ass handed to it by Sony, Nintendo swung for the hills in this embarrassing display of power by waggling a lump of plastic at the screen like we're busting for a piss. Yes, gaming was in the firm grip of the motion-controlled revolution, where your mum was destroying her TVs, wrists, and when you were asleep, her minge, trying to beat your bowling high score.
Nice cock.
But Nindy wasn't happy with this performative hand gestures, so decided to up the ante with the Wii Motion Plus. And just like the price announcement of the PS Triple, the crowd collectively took their Ritalin.
It's called Wii Motion Plus.
And speaking of mind-numbing, the mistress of ceremonies, Cammie Dunaway, while talking to a room filled with industry insiders, decided to speak to that room like a condescending tit.
Well, as you can see, my name is not Reggie. But these days, I do have a lot in common with my boss. We're both having a lot of fun. I mean, how can you not be happy when your job every day is to get up and think about video games?
That's right, children. Put on your pastel-coloured shirt and join the rest of us in this bland circle jerk. And speaking of playing, we have a demo of Shaun White snowboarding by the titular Human Carrot, whose sick board skills made him giggle like a child asking for more sugar 5 seconds after shitting his jinkos. But that was just window dressing to the show-stopping live demo of Wii Music, where this fine gentleman did his send-up of Phil Collins. And then the Nintendo All-Stars dazzled the crowd with a performance that would make Corey Feldman weep. I envy the death.
2009.
On the Microsoft stage during a promo for Beatles Rock Band, half of the Fab Four and the other half's other halves walked out to a chorus of claps and cheers from the now reinstated Hooting Sheep.
All right.
Looks like they want us to talk amongst ourselves, Paul.
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think of the game?
I love it.
You love it?
Yeah. I
Okay.
can't play it.
Thank you.
But if a bunch of overpaid OAPs isn't your bag, how about gawking at the motion technology of the Kinect, where the quote core gamers can finally see the bottom of their shoes of their fugly avatars.
You ever wonder what the bottom of an avatar shoe looks like? Well, bam! There it is.
Riveting stuff. But for Peter Molyneux, this is too much high-powered twattery. So instead he showcases Milo, an interactive experience powered by this new tech, where you, the player, look after the titular boy in a weird and creepy take on the Tamagotchi. And just like that beeping battery-powered pain in the ass, it turns out that this gameplay demo was complete and total bollocks, which is pretty on brand for Molly, but it also is an indictment of the camera itself. And yes, the Kinect was a runaway success when it first launched, but this impressive motion sensing tech being demoed here and throughout this show was cut down considerably, meaning all these actions where you hop around like a weeb on coke with relative accuracy turned into a clusterfuck of frustration. And oh my me, if you love a good train wreck, E-Triple 2010 plumbs to new depths of discomfort with the infamous keynote from Konami, from the hype man telling everyone to shut up.
Any noise that you make in the room will be broadcast on the internet live, so be conscious of that. If not, you might end up on the internet in a sound at least, and we don't want that to happen, so please, yeah, you don't want to do that.
To Tak Fuji, the director of 99 Nights 2, pointing at the screen for 10 excruciating minutes.
Yes.
There is a veritable buffet of shit going on here. But let's not forget our favourite fuckers of a certain fog-filled town shared some new info about a brand new Silent Hill game. And in this cavalcade of unintentional creepiness, Diet Henry Rollins, Devin Shatsky, bores a hole through the lead developer Brian Gomez's head for 50 dumbfounding seconds. And the only problem with this satirical drive-by is these little highlights are just 1% of the entire show. It's so bad, so cloying in its uncomfortable candor, it swings right back around to being good. Well, if what you deem good is fucking excruciating. Especially when these poor bastards that are dying on stage have to address the world in a language they can barely speak. And I would be in trouble if I didn't mention that this was the E3 where Noah Antweiler, aka the Spoony one, took offense to a new game in the XCOM franchise. As he stood next to this grinning idiot, Spoony, in a fit of nerd rage, bellowed this at the top of his lungs.
And so I saw the footage, and there was one word searing through my mind like bolts of fire. And that word, betrayal!
What?
Betrayal! Betrayed me! This game sucks! It has nothing to do with XCOM. Nothing! Nothing!
And forever forged his name on the toilet store of Meandon. If this betrayal is too spicy for you, why not decompress with Sony's fictitious vice president, Kevin Butler, played by real-life Jerry Lambert, who at this time was causing a splash being the mascot of its corporate masters TV ads, dripping with that how do you do fellow kids energy that makes me want to drive nails into my foreskin.
So am I crazy, or did I just see 100 French acrobats prancing around an arena the other night? I hear there was a sale on blue ponchos. But seriously, I know everyone's got their eye on this motion control battle like it was Olivia Munn in a Lara Croft outfit.
Also, this chuckle-filled black hole would start another unwelcome trend in future E3s, where some Burke would stand in front of the world and do their regurgitated Ricky Gervais routines.
We're at E3, and I just want to say this place is the only place that makes the guys at Comic-Con look like Ocean's 13.
And speaking of unfunny twats, when it came to Ubisoft's keynote in 2011, your funny bone was further broken by Aaron Mr. Caffeine Priceman, whose nostalgic routine, where the only missing thing was a cutaway gag after each line like your average mid-40s retro influencer, wowed the crowd with zingers like this.
To really take in how much time 25 years is, let's go back in time, shall we? Doodle, 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 to a time when people heard the word Ubisoft for the very first time. You know, back then, movies looked like this. And music looked like this. Computing looked like this. And Charlie Sheen looked like this. That's pre-Tiger Blood right there.
Ha ha ha, do you remember place nostalgic reference here? Doesn't it fill you with gushy feelings that isn't your IBS flaring up? Fuck me. And to think their open world games were soul crushing. 2013, and this is where Microsoft shat so many beds it could have been framed and sold as a piece of fine art, who are in full damage control after an announcement of the Xbox One and its draconian DRM measures. But then the corporate ghoul to end all corporate ghouls, Don Matrick, decided to double down on these ridiculous measures, and in an interview with Android Jeff Keighley, he confidently says this.
Some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it, and fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360, that's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
Ugh, what a fucking asshole. And in his mire of hubris, Sony was rubbing themselves through their trouser pockets in glee as they shared a video of Shohei Yoshida passing a PS4 game to Adam Bowles that went viral in a snarky takedown of Team Green's cock-ups, which is hilarious. Just don't mention the lack of backwards compatibility on their new shiny Skinner box. But hey, at least on the Xbone you could play the sequel to the greatest game of all time.
I'd say I was speechless, but I have one more thing to announce. Coming this year, Peggle 2!
Onwards and upwards as we take to the skies in 2014 with No Man's Sky, an indie game which later evolved into Minecraft with space tits, but here it blew people away with its size and scope, and with the lead of the project, Sean Murray, taken to the podium like a nervous schoolchild being called to the headmaster's office, he, bless him, stumbles through the speech for 5 agonizing minutes.
I'm Sean, I'm from Hello Games, we're a tiny little indie studio. We're a group of friends making No Man's Sky. It's a science fiction game, I guess inspired by the kind of sci-fi that I grew up with. The battered book covers of Heinlein, Asimov, Clarke. Just worlds that I wanted to escape to but never could.
Perhaps he knew that his humbled game was being blown out of proportion by the audience, who was hyping this shit up beyond all reasonable expectations, or lying for his back teeth to pander to everyone. Whatever, the game's a banger regardless. Speaking of misplaced hype, E3 2015 was the poster child of bloviated indifference, with the announcement that Shenmue 3 is, dramatic pause, now on Kickstarter. Yes, on the main event of Sony's conference, a multi-billion-dollar company, they are giving you this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to throw your money at a game that is exclusive to its console, in a vain attempt to bank on your nostalgia. You know, back when you had a full head of hair and you could reproduce without the need of expensive blue pills. Anyway, once they rolled out the director of this iconic series, Yu Suzuki, to regale us about this new chapter in Ryo's saga, the aftertaste of this thunderous announcement started to sink in. I mean, if it's getting into bed with Sony, why does it need our money to function? Well, in 2019 we would find out, and while it looked pretty, Shenmue 3 is so archaic in its design, I feel like I'm playing a shitpost with a story that spun its wheels so hard you would get high from the burnt rubber. And the sad truth is that this entire endeavour was a grim reminder that sometimes dead is indeed better. But if this simmering sexual tension is too much to bear, E3 2016 was going all in on virtual reality, which I personally love, but the problem with showing the uninitiated what it feels to be present in this exciting immersive tech would be difficult without strapping one to your own bonds. But this is E3, the WrestleMania of uncreative tripe. So instead of trying to give a viewer a clue on how this would enhance your gameplay, we were subjected to lengthy clips of people doing a very inappropriate parody of Stevie Wonder. 2017 was another sodding year of drudgery, until Chad Coder extraordinaire Cliff Blazinski thumbed his nose at full-price shooty shit, and his subversive marketing plan didn't make him sound like a complete and total tosser.
So the game is finally dropping on August 8th. On PC and PlayStation 4.
Oh, that's soon.
$29.99, none of that $60 multiplayer only bullshit.
Yeah, you show him who's boss, and then show him that Lawbreakers was a flop that stole ideas from every fucking knowing shooter going, and then a year later got shut down. So yeah, it had a lower price of entry, but as it was suckling on the teat of live service, it doesn't matter how much you spend on it, because now you can no longer play it. Whoops. Then the Pixel Pushers over at Devolver Digital had their own keynote, where they lampooned the shit out of E3, to hilarious effect. Well, that's what the press and viewers were saying. Personally, I found this elaborate sketch to be face-pungently smug. While it has the humour of an early 2000s lads mag, its snarky jabs at this event, while refreshing, is just the same pandering shit, but with a knowing wink to the camera.
So a common thing I've been hearing from the fans is that there's a certain level of disconnect between their desire to pay for a game and their ability to actually pay for said game. An open dialogue with fans is deeply important to us. And when we hear that you're throwing money at the screen and we look into our bank accounts and that money isn't there, well, it's sad pandas and suicide watch for the accounting team.
And what kills it for me is its performative nature. With everyone hamming it up, the comedy comes from its over-the-top edginess rather than its sardonic tone bubbling under the surface. And while I appreciate Devolver for going for the throat, this is ultimately a parody within a parody that doesn't look past itself. Instead of sneering contempt, the vibe I'm getting is, "We are being funny, please laugh," which undercuts the biting tone, and the satisfaction of getting a joke over the fickies' heads, who are taking this shit at face value. I guess now I know how it feels when my sense of humour hits in the same way. However, the final stop in this rundown of bum gravy, E3 2019, is where the internet was set alight by Akumi Nakamura, the creative lead of Ghostwire Tokyo, who in this charming rah-rah session wowed the audience with her charisma and warmness that even a miserable bellend such as myself felt.
So many people. Wow, thank you. ありがとうございます。And such a big stage makes me nervous. I'll do my best to speak in English.
And in a complete 180 to this wholesomeness, the human equivalent of the default setting, Jeff Keighley, had a cozy sit-down convo with Todd Howard, who as we all know is 16 times more likely to talk utter bollocks, and used car salesman come hate speech enjoyer, Elon Musk, who in his special feature during a fucking gaming convention decided to talk about how he's a big fan of his new best friend, and good hunting golly, this is fucking boring. And I know interrupting a sentence to say something disparaging is cliche, but come on, this is beyond torture. Elon's moneticity, coupled with his Ben Affleck level of anti-charisma, further coupled with his innate ability to bend every conversation into a lengthy screed about himself, made this a tough watch.
Fate loves irony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked rocket science programming games. It was a long time ago. And it must have been like 93 or something, or 94.
And when he actually made a coherent fucking sentence, he says absolutely nothing of worth, like having post-sex pleasantries with a Tory politician. But the saving grace of this trash fire was Tim Rogers' odyssey of the last 20 minutes of E3, where he drank energy drinks and sat on as many gaming branded ass-cushioning devices he could. And in a way, his dry wit is almost prophetic, and how it predicts the end of E3. Sure, it went on for another couple of years, but this exhaustive barrage of passive-aggressive lampoonery is not only a treat, but watching this video you can tell that, yeah, it's dead in the water. But luckily for us, this festival of fuckery is over, and now we can get into my opinion on why E3 died, if it wasn't blindly obvious already. Yes, we know that money was the main factor, and a global pandemic was the viral spanner in the works. But in my humbled opinion, these setbacks were just the final straw in a show that's been bleeding out for years. Just typing E3 into the search bar on YouTube is the first juicy morsel. Apart from the usual bollocks where white dudes stare back at you with their gobs open, the biggest videos at or near the top of these searches are supercuts of all the uncomfortable moments from a given year, which denotes to me that Electronic 3 had a bit of an image problem, especially in the 2010s, when this irritating trend of pandering to the audience, starring incongruous faces of varying popularity, took priority over, you know, showing us the games.
How hyped are we for Star Wars? Let's hear it! So hyped. Hype mode engaged, although that's actually a lie. It was engaged about 3 days ago.
Especially if you want to watch these events live as a casual game player who isn't into every facet of the culture. Taking a step back, would they actually watch something like this? No. They are going to jump on any place with gaming news and get the scoops they're looking for, without some blithering knobhead shouting at you like this catastrophe is all your fucking fault. And while I think cringe compilations are mean-spirited and poke fun at people who don't deserve that level of scorn, this leaning into the relatability side of E3 opened itself up to a level of rubbernecking not seen in other mediums. Oh sure, you get actors and authors who say stupid shit online constantly, but they are rarely displayed in this sort of manner. And arguably the shift in the opinion of E3 is when Nintendo in 2013 moved away from live shows to their pre-recorded videos that cut out the bullshit and got to the point. And after watching hours upon hours of the other presentations, checking this out now was a breath of fresh air that didn't smell of desperation. And this is coming from someone who is ambivalent about their brand. Well, apart from Captain Toad, Metroid, and of course that weird Mario-themed XCOM style game that I got weirdly obsessed with a while back. Tenuous link, but just look at the creative director, David Solani, crying with joy after Miyamoto gave his game the thumbs up. Which raises another point. In this sea of games talking, where are the developers, the nameless yet crucial coding rock stars who pile an ungodly amount of hours into their craft? Sure, the ones we do see on these shows are not public speakers, but I'd rather see them sell their wares over, say, Greg fucking Miller, squawking to the camera like a gurning c***. And that's my point. E3 was supposed to be the shining beacon of the medium, the place to show off your game to millions of players, and to bask in the glory of their achievements and be credited for their hard work. But if you act nervous or awkward, then whatever you're trying to advertise is now irrelevant, because you are now the most memorable moment, captured in 4K for all to see. And sure, we all point and laugh because deep down we have this deep carnal fear of becoming the next Mr. Caffeine. But I cannot deny that there is a tiny pit in my stomach when I see someone die a million deaths on stage.
If you guys didn't know, Need for Speed Payback,
Sure, I can take the piss out of the money men till I'm blue in the face, but when I see this, I feel nothing but empathy. While E3 at one point in time was the lightning rod of legitimacy for this young art form, the things that killed it were simple. The cost to run the show was unsustainable, which is ironic as thousands of those faceless rock stars are currently losing their jobs due to this infinite growth fallacy that has blighted this industry for the last decade. The audience fixation on the car crash side of the shows that take precedent over focusing on the subject at hand, and these keynotes were so bloated to the point where nothing has meaning, forced us to latch on to these little human moments, and all of this flows into this slurry of apathy, where every single year we would see this dystopian, idealistic view of our culture through the lens of huge corporations that don't care about the people who create this shit or the people who consume its content.
You're breathtaking!
Sorry, Keanu. I love you, but your bland platitudes, charming as they are a ploy for me to slap my hard-earned down on a desk with broken legs. Ooh, arc at me, my frilly metaphors. I hate myself.